Dating apps could reveal your exact location. Twilio has killed off Authy for desktop, DuckDuckGo has been blocked in Indonesia, some good open source news, and much more. Welcome to Surveillance Report 189, where we are dedicated to keeping you private and secure with the latest news from the past week. I am Nathan from The New Oil.
And I'm Henry from Techlore.
As usual, if you would like to support this podcast, we have several ways to do that. So first off, we have Patreon, and some big news on that one. We have added a community, as promised. You guys overwhelmingly voted for Signal. There were like 600 and something votes, and Signal won by 76%. And now that Signal has usernames, it's much better for group members and everything. So if you are interested in signing up and getting some perks, that's at the $5 level, right?
Yeah, it's the entry level, and it's already live. So when you're listening to this, if you want to join a little Signal group with some privacy people, you can just join Patreon right now and join, and then we'll let you in once you send us your name. And it's that simple.
Display name, by the way. It doesn't have to be username because we can't see your username.
Yeah, don't send us your username. It's confusing. I guess I'm asking people because people get confused. I say don't send your username, send your display name, but some people still send the username. But I don't know how else to distinguish it. So if any of you have a better way to distinguish those, let me know.
So that's starting at the $5 level, and you also get access to the Q&A to ask us a question. And then if you want at the $10 level, you don't have to hear any of this pitch. Although I'll probably leave that Signal part in this week just for the paid users, just so you know it's there now. If you don't care about any of the perks, but you just want a simple recurring way to support us, we do still have LibrePay, which is a great open source project. And of course, the most private and secure way to contribute is Monero. And Henry's right, there have been a lot of donations recently, so thank you guys very much for supporting the project. As usual, we don't know anything about you, but we do see the contributions and they mean a lot to us. Thanks for keeping us going. And with that, let's get into our highlight story this week. So, Bumble and Hinge allowed stalkers to pinpoint users' locations down to 2 meters, which is about 6 feet for those of us in freedom units. This is a research paper from the Belgian university KU, I'm not going to pronounce it right, Leuven, and they detailed their findings when they analyzed 15 popular dating apps. So it wasn't just Bumble and Hinge. Those were just a couple of the well-known names. Of those, Badoo, Bumble, Grindr, Happen, Hinge, and Hilly all had the same vulnerability that could have helped a malicious user identify the near exact location of another user. While neither of the apps share exact locations when displaying the distance between users on their profiles, they did use exact locations for the filters feature. I do know from when I used to do online dating and used to be single that some of them will say, like 1.2 miles away, or if you match with someone pretty close, some of them will get below that. They'll say like 800 yards away. It's pretty crazy. Very scary stuff. To pinpoint the exact location of a target user, researchers used a novel technique they call oracle trilateration. Okay, I'm going to be a little nitpicky here. They're kind of being fancy with it because it's just triangulation. They say it's not technically triangulation and it's not technically, but it's close enough because basically all they're doing is they're shrinking the filter until the target user disappears. And then they will probably by manipulating the app to change the location, they'll move somewhere else and they'll do it again. And once they've done it 3 times, they can pinpoint based on when the user appears and disappears, you're probably in this area to, within a couple meters, like the headline said. I don't know why they made up a fancy name for it, but yeah, they're basically just triangulating. So the good news is, after the researchers reached out to these apps, all of them have since fixed these issues. The fix, according to researchers, was to round up the exact coordinates by 3 decibels, making them less precise and accurate. This is a really straightforward story, but I do think it is a big story worth sharing because, there's a lot of people out there still in the dating pool, and online dating is one way. There's a lot of different ways to meet people, and I'm not here to encourage or discourage a specific one, but some people prefer online, or at very least want to keep their options open. They're still very popular apps, and if you're going to use them, you should definitely be aware of the privacy risks of doing so.
Yeah, some things that I've talked about in the past that we've even mentioned in our dating guide, like a private/safety dating guide. Nowadays, both Android and iOS don't require you to give your precise location. So this is something that listeners to our podcast and people who are a little bit more privacy conscious might have already dealt with by not giving the precise location to these apps that don't need your precise location. Like Nate said, it doesn't matter whether you're 1 block or 3 blocks away from your date, and if you give it your generic town instead of giving it literally exactly where you live, that's actually a pretty big difference. One thing I never liked, because I've been on some of these apps, is when you match with somebody, if you're actually some of these don't even have a matching system, so it's somewhat public what your location is. But with something like Bumble or Hinge, for example, everyone you match with can 24/7 see your location. Even if it's not the precise one. And it's just something you should think about. Even if you're just doing the loose location permission that you're granting the app, if you went on a couple dates with this person, they might know that you split time between two areas. And so they might know what area you're in. And if they already know where you live and they know that you're not in town, like let's say you go on dates in Orlando, but then they see your locations in Texas, but they know where you live. They probably know you're out of town, and so your house is empty. So I'm not here to tell people to just be distrustful of everybody. Just think a little bit about what sharing your location means and how that can really screw you over, especially for people who are dating. And I know there's a lot of wariness around dating. Right. Data breaches. Health Equity says data breach impacts 4.3 million people. This is one of the largest HSA custodians in the US, and they specialize in providing HSA accounts and FSAs, which are flexible spending accounts, health reimbursement arrangements, and 401ks. The data that's been exposed is a result of the breach, varies per individual, and includes full names, home addresses, telephone numbers, employer and employee IDs, social security numbers, general dependent information, and payment card information.
A cybercriminal breaches pharma giant Bosch Health and wants to extort the DEA. So on Tuesday, a user called Spider Hunters on an underground forum wrote that they had 1.6 million medical DEA numbers and prescriber details from Bosch Health available for sale. The DEA registration number is an identifier required specifically for ordering controlled substances. Bosch has known about the breach for some time, according to chat logs, but only confirmed it after the attacker went public with their data for sale and extortion attempt. The news is the latest fallout from the compromises of accounts with Snowflake, a data warehousing tool. The same attacker who has obtained the Bosch data is linked to the breaches of Ticketmaster and other Snowflake-related hacks. Earlier this month, 404 Media discovered many more Snowflake credentials in feeds available on Telegram. They belong to New Zealand's largest water utility, Watercare, Gritfeet, a data and intelligence company, a consultancy called QLX, a U.S. energy company, NGL Energy Partners, and tech giant Adobe. Watercare told 404 it previously rescinded access for the exposed credentials, and the other companies did not respond to a request for comment.
Cencora confirms a patient health info stolen in February attack. They used to be known as Amerisource Bergen, and they specialize in pharmaceutical services, providing drug distribution and technology solutions for doctors' offices, pharmacies, and animal health care. They're ranked number 10 on the Fortune 500 and number 24 on the global Fortune 500 with a revenue of more than $250 billion. The reviews confirmed that the data included personal information and protected health information of individuals, most of which is maintained by a company subsidiary that provides patient support services. Some of the companies impacted by this breach, because it includes all the companies that rely on their services, is Novartis, Bayer, AbbVie, Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, Genentech, Insight, Sumitomo Pharma America, Acadia Pharmaceuticals, GlaxoSmithKline Group, Endo Pharmaceuticals, and Dendreon Pharmaceuticals.
So normally we've been doing the thing where we just kind of do top 3 data breaches, but there were only 4 this week, so we'll go ahead and do the last one as well. Sensitive Illinois voter data exposed by contractors' unsecured databases. These contained sensitive voter information from multiple counties, and they were openly accessible on the internet, revealing 4.6 million records that included driver's license numbers, as well as full and partial social security numbers and documents such as death certificates. A security researcher stumbled upon one of the databases that appeared to contain information from DeKalb County, or DeKalb, I don't know how you pronounce that, and subsequently discovered another 12 exposed databases, none of which were password protected nor required any type of authentication to access. The researcher says that they were actual voter applications, like the scanned documents and screenshots of online applications. They saw roles for active voters, absentee voters with email address, some of them military email addresses. And he says it's when he saw social security numbers and driver's license numbers and stuff that he was like, okay, those, quote, okay, those shouldn't be there, unquote. So through public records, the researcher determined that all of the counties appear to contract with a specific company called Platinum Technology Resource, which provides voter registration software and other digital tools, along with services like ballot printing. They reached out to Platinum Technology Resources. The company didn't respond, but they did actually fix the issue.
And now we have the company news. And so Twilio has killed off Authy, which is the 2FA app for desktop, and forcibly logs out all users. In January, they announced that Authy Desktop apps for Windows, macOS, and Linux would reach end of life on March 19th, 2024, and will ultimately be discontinued in August. While the desktop apps continued to work past March, when opened, they showed an alert warning that the program had reached end of life and that users should switch to the mobile versions immediately. Those who have continued to use Authy and ignored the warnings have found that their 2FA accounts are gone unless they had previously synced them with a mobile device. However, those who sync their desktop apps with the mobile versions have discovered that some of their tokens did not correctly synchronize, making their associate accounts inaccessible.
All right, let's move into research. And Dashlane says that passkey adoption has increased by 400% in 2024. So according to the report, 1 in 5 active Dashlane users now have at least one passkey in their vault. Over 100 sites now offer passkey support. And for the record, on The New Oil, if you go to my page about password managers and you scroll to the bottom, we do link to 2 sites. One is from 1Password, and I think one's from Bitwarden, actually, but they're like crowdsourced websites that offer passkeys. Dashlane says the top 20 most popular apps account for 52% of passkey authentications. When you split them into industry sectors, e-commerce, so like eBay, Amazon, Target, made up the largest share at 42%. So-called sticky apps, meaning those used on a frequent basis, such as social media, e-commerce, and finance or payment apps, saw the fastest adoption between April and June. Other domains show surprising growth, though, such as Roblox in the top 20. It's the only gaming app in the top 20, but it is outperforming platforms like Facebook, X, and Adobe.
We now have politics. COSA, which is the
Kids Online Safety Act,
Thank you. Yeah, the Kids Online Safety Act, which has not been a very favorable thing that many people in the community have wanted. But the COSA Internet Censorship Bill just passed the Senate. So there's one more chance to stop it, because the way the US works, it's got to pass through the Senate and the House for people outside the US. It just passed in the Senate, and this bill will let the federal and state governments investigate and sue websites that they claim cause kids mental distress. A lot of people are saying it's a bad idea to let politicians and bureaucrats decide what people should read and view online, but either way, the Senate passed COSA on a 91-3 vote. If you're in the US and you have a representative that's in the House, it's probably good to start giving some calls to try to do something about this.
The Department of Justice is suing TikTok, alleging, quote, massive scale invasions of children's privacy, unquote. So the DOJ said that TikTok has violated the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act of 1998, or COPPA, and the Children's Online Privacy Protection Rule, claiming that TikTok allowed kids to create and access accounts without their parents' knowledge or consent, and collected data from those children, failed to comply with parents' requests to delete their children's accounts and information. COPPA requires that TikTok prove that it does not target kids as its primary audience, and TikTok claims to satisfy that by requiring users to create accounts to report their birth dates. However, even if a child inputs their real birthday, TikTok then does nothing to stop them from restarting the process and using a fake birthday. Dodging TikTok's age gate has been easy for millions of kids, the DOJ alleges, and TikTok knows that, collecting their information anyways and neglecting to delete information even when child users identify themselves as children. The DOJ says that the precise magnitude of TikTok's violations is difficult to determine, but TikTok's internal analysis shows that millions of TikTok's US users are children under the age of 13. A TikTok spokesperson told Ars Technica that TikTok plans to fight the lawsuit, which is part of the US's ongoing battle with the app. Currently, they are fighting a nationwide ban that was passed this year.
Meta, aka Facebook, to pay $1.4 billion settlement after Texas facial recognition complaint. So they've agreed to pay this in the state of Texas to settle claims that the company harvested millions of citizens' biometric data without proper consent. The settlement, to be paid over 5 years, is the largest ever obtained from an action brought by a single U.S. state. It also marks one of the largest penalties levied at Meta by regulators, second only to a $5 billion settlement it paid to the U.S. FTC in 2019 for the misuse of user data in the wake of the Cambridge Analytica privacy scandal. The original complaint, filed in February of 2022, accused Facebook's now closed facial recognition system of collecting biometric identifiers of millions of Texans from photos and videos without consent. Meta launched a feature in 2011 called Tag Suggestions that recommended to users who to tag in photos and videos by scanning this facial geometry of those pictured. In 2021, a year before the lawsuit was filed, they announced it was shuttering its facial recognition system, including the tag feature. It wiped the biometric data it had collected from 1 billion users, citing legal uncertainty.
And our last story comes from Indonesia, where DuckDuckGo has been blocked over porn and gambling search results. I mean, the headline really says it all. This is just kind of more context from the article. Apparently, Indonesia kind of has a track record of doing this stuff. In January, Indonesia announced it blocked nearly 600,000 online gambling portals and took action against 5,000 bank accounts that engaged with them. They have previously blocked numerous pornography sites, Reddit, and Vimeo. and imposed temporary or partial restrictions on Tumblr, Telegram, TikTok, Netflix, and Badoo. DDG has now confirmed that Indonesia blocked their search engine and that it has no means to respond to it. Quote, "We can confirm that DuckDuckGo has been blocked in Indonesia due to their censorship policies. Unfortunately, there is no current path to being unblocked, similar to how we've been blocked in China for about a decade now." Unquote. At the same time, Google Search remains accessible in Indonesia, which suggests that either the tech giant has implemented effective self-censoring mechanisms for its local search engine, or its size makes blocking too disruptive for internet usage in the country. Indonesians have resorted to using VPN software to bypass the government's restrictions. However, the government plans to block free VPNs, making gaining access to block sites costly.
We have free and open source news, and I'm going to group these up because they're both really quick. You don't need an account now to use Proton VPN's free plan on Android. So if you download the Android app for Proton VPN, you can now continue as guest. And now you can use the service without a Proton account. And then this is big news. Linux hits another desktop market share record. This is now up to 4.45% in July of 2024, climbing almost half a percentage point from June's 4.05% high.
All right, and now into Misfits. Burglars are jamming Wi-Fi security cameras. So according to a tweet sent out by the Los Angeles Police Department, a small band of burglars is using Wi-Fi jamming devices to nullify wireless security cameras before breaking and entering. The thieves seem to be well above the level of your typical smash and grab job. They have lookout teams, they enter through the second story, and they go for small but high value items such as jewelry and designer purses. Wireless signal jammers are illegal in the US. However, signal jammers are electronically simple and relatively easy to build or buy from less than scrupulous sources. The cops are suggesting the usual precautions: don't tell anyone you're going on vacation, look out for suspicious vehicles, etc. But they're also suggesting that homeowners use old-fashioned wired sets of security cameras that require more elaborate installations and extra hardware.
Credit card users are getting mysterious Shopify Charge.com charges. So people worldwide are reporting seeing mysterious $1 or $0 charges from Shopify Charge.com appearing under credit card bills, even when they did not attempt to purchase anything. The charges have no rhyme or reason to them and are seen on physical and virtual credit cards of all types. Some people report that charges were also attempted against older deactivated cards, and the charges started approximately 10 days ago on July 21st, with the number of impacted people increasing as time passed. Of more concern is that 2 people claim to have received similar charges soon after creating a new virtual card at their bank. It really only gets more confusing. The address associated with the charge doesn't exist, and the phone number goes to a debt collection agency who claims ignorance. And Shopify says their recent data breach didn't include payment info.
And that was all the news for this week. It's kind of a short week, so dating apps could potentially reveal your exact location. Again, that particular issue was fixed, but who knows what the next one will be. Make sure to watch those permissions, be careful what you're posting. I think both of us have I've done a couple blog posts about it. I think Henry's done a video, so definitely a lot of information there. Twilio has killed Authy Desktop. This is your sign to move off of Authy. Henry has a video about that too. DuckDuckGo has been blocked in Indonesia, some good open source news, and much more. So again, if you would like to support this podcast, keep us going, you can join our Patreon, where now at both levels, you have access to the Signal group if you want. Obviously, you don't have to, but if you want to chat with other like-minded privacy people who are interested in this stuff, that is now an option. And you also get access to our Q&A to ask us questions. For $10 a month or more, you get the longer version of this podcast, which even on short weeks like this is still longer and contains more of our thoughts, our opinions, our analysis. And you also don't have to listen to this promo segment, which is nice, especially if you're an audio listener. I know YouTube has sponsor block that probably skips right through this, but for everyone else. And then, of course, if you don't care about the perks, but you just want something simple and recurring that you don't have to think about, we do have a LibrePay. And last but not least, we still have Monero, where, again, we know nothing about you, but we do see the contributions, and we really appreciate them. They keep us going. Thank you all for listening. Links to all the stories can be found in the show notes. As always, if you have a story you think we should cover, please send it to news@surveillancereport.tech. And the last thing we want to ask is share the podcast around. Make sure you're subscribed. Give us a rating if you're listening from a platform where that's an option. We're trying to reach as many people as possible. And really, again, sharing around is the best way to do that. We also have the Surveillance Clips channel if you guys just want to send a specific story, or again, we use the Patreon version when we make those clips so you can get an idea of what the Patreon version looks like. So thank you all again for listening, and we'll be back next week with whatever news happens between now and then.